So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the India variant and its impact in the UK. There's a lot to talk about here, and the government once again have let the variant into the country. That's the third major variant we've had into this country, and the fact that international travel has been reopened, I'd be very wary if I was another country right now to allow British people, especially from certain areas, into their country because this India variant looks like a real problem, a real problem. And the government have put their own lockdown plans at risk because they allowed this vaccine this variant in, and they did so. They didn't put India on the red list when other Asian countries were on the red list for political reasons, because they wanted to get a deal from India. And we know we got a couple deals worth £1 billion, and that might sound like a lot, but in the past, under David Cameron, the British government signed a deal with India, a commercial deal worth £9 billion, and the EU signed commercial deals with India that are far higher. So this cost, was it worth it? To get the small optics of your little deal, because what you've done is cause the country more pain, more problems, and you've damaged the economy now, because if these businesses have to go back into lockdown, that's going to cost them money. Some of these businesses are going to struggle. We've already seen small businesses die out because of this. We don't know how, they are speculating that the vaccine will work against the India variant. We don't know how for certain that is. We don't know. Especially since the government has been very tight with second jabs, and instead following through with a policy of just giving people as many single doses as possible. Also, the fact that you are risking further mutation by allowing the India variant to spread around areas that have been vaccinated, because we don't know if that India variant could further mutate into something that could avoid vaccines or be less affected by vaccines. Anyways, let's go into the article. So it starts with the hospitality businesses in this is Bolton, I believe. Experiencing a fresh spike of COVID cases, have been told of their concern as pubs and cafes prepare to open indoors. Surely, we should go back to the old traffic light system, where if your area has a certain amount of COVID cases per capita, then you're going to be in the red zone. Surely that should be the case, because if you let these people out and about, they could be spreading COVID everywhere. This new India variant could be spread everywhere because you decided to be stupid. You decided to take a risk again with this variant. So Bolton has been one of the highest instances of the Indian variant in the UK, and is seeing a particularly sharp rise in cases among unvaccinated people under 25. And you can say, COVID doesn't impact younger people as much. It can still light up your lungs though. It can still scar up your lungs. It can still do damage to you. As lockdown rules prepare to ease on Monday, pubs and restaurants in the town are sounding a note of caution. Some are worried about a return to the surges seen in the area last year. Many people have asked, it raises the questions of how long are we going to be open for? It does worry me because I cannot protect my staff. You got to imagine, if you're a business, this uncertainty is causing you massive problems. There's some analysis here from Dominic Hughes. The spike is related to international travel, particularly with people returning to Bolton from India. The cases are now in the community, and it seems to be located around the south and southwest parts of the town. Interestingly, the cases are very much stacked in those under the age of 25. It could be because they have, retail jobs or whatever kind of jobs that means that they're kind of out and about, or it could be people within schools, etc. There were 721 cases yesterday in those aged between age 5 and 25. That's not great, and these people are typically socially mobile. They're out and about, they're doing stuff, and that's what allows it to spread really quickly. Part of this is because all the school children are being tested twice a week, but it is very much present in that younger age group, and that's a problem. And you can look at the numbers here. You can see the big spike from about the end of April, and it starts rising dramatically. This article is from a few days ago. You can see here that India was put on the red list on the 23rd of April, the day that Boris Johnson was meant to go to do trade talks with Modi, but he had to cancel because the numbers looked bad and the optics were really bad as is. Had Boris Johnson gone, I think the optics would have been far worse, but the government's kind of argument that, we got the best borders and stuff like that is rubbish. Because I haven't read many stories about the India variant causing many problems in Europe yet. And it could be the fault of the UK that's going to cause a further surge in Europe by spreading this new variant into Europe. So yeah, we could be doing it again. But you can see here, Pakistan and Bangladesh had both been on the red list since April 9th. However, India was only on it from the 23rd, and we're going to have a better graph, but you can see the Indian numbers being far higher. Cases of the Indian variant have more than doubled in the past week. Figures from Public Health England show Bolton in Greater Manchester is one town that has seen a sharp rise in infections since mid-April. So how concerned should we be? We should be very concerned. We've got higher rates. I don't know who's been quoted here. I couldn't figure it out. Oh, this is Lynn Donkin saying that we've got higher rates in the younger age groups, but the increases are now happening all across all the under 60s. Says Lynn Donkin, the Assistant Director of Public Health in Bolton. That suggests to me that we've got transmission within households, and that's now part of the situation here. So the variant's in. Even if you stop air travel now, or even if you stopped air travel a week ago from India, it doesn't matter now because the variant's in the country. It's here. The walls have been climbed. The castle, the siege has been, the siege has been there. The enemies have boarded the castle. They've climbed the walls and they're in. It doesn't matter if you pull up the drawbridge now because it's here. Samples from Bolton have been sent to scientists at Public Health England who identified a variant of the virus known as B.1.617.2 that was first spotted in India earlier this year. Initially, we did see some cases linked to international travel, says Miss Donkin. And the government's policy of testing people and requiring a negative test to come into the country is not working, especially because in some airports people are being put next to other people who are from red list countries. The system in place here is not working within the UK. It's all falling apart. But we've now got the picture of widespread community transmission associated with all sorts of different settings. So what the government has to do is shut down this area of Bolton, do more aggressive testing, which they are doing. They push vaccinations over here, which means that vaccinations in other parts of the country are going to be delayed because of the government's actions. And the further fact is this area, if it doesn't go into lockdown, if this area is allowed to open up, indoor seating, that's it. This thing's going to spread like wildfire everywhere. That's what's going to happen. And today indoor seating has opened, so I don't know if that's opened within Bolton. If it has, then fair play, because the government have doomed another area of this country once again. Thank you, government. Thank you. But we've now got the picture of widespread. I mentioned that those settings are now thought to include a number of schools which have sent home classes to self-isolate, and that causes problems for the kids' education. But also the fact that they're going to spread it to their parents potentially. That causes more problems. You got more people being furloughed, or more people being put on sick pay, which we know isn't enough for people. That's why one of the reasons why people are refusing, don't want to be tested, because they can't afford to live on sick pay because there's not enough. This is a problem that's been constantly highlighted by Dido Harding, I think by Sage even, probably by Independent Sage as well. So the government still haven't learnt their lesson from the last times we had surges from the first one, the second one, and potentially now a third one. The local council has been targeting the area for some weeks now with mobile testing units, leaflets in Hindi and Gujarati, which is good, and door-to-door visits, handing out self-testing kits. These things are great, but the simple fact is we shouldn't be in this position right now. It's down to the government being stupid and chasing trade deals. So effectively, Brexit has a part to play in this surge happening right now. That's what's happened. It's just so frustrating. India on the red list may be too late, according to Professor Mark Walpott. This is something we covered previously, so we won't go into super amounts of depth on this one. But India's addition to the UK's red list countries due to rising COVID cases and concerns over a new variant may have come too late, the UK's former chief scientific advisor said. Mark Walport told the BBC he believed that the new variant was more transmissible and there was good reason for keeping it out in the UK. We know it's too late. India had been reporting more than 200,000 cases a day since the 15th of April, and it took a few more days for the UK to actually do anything about it. It should be the case that if any country has a surge in COVID cases, they should be immediately put on the red list because of that risk of a new variant coming into the UK. Immediately put on the red list. Yvette Cooper saying that delays in putting India on the red list, gaps in previous home quarantine enforcement and testing, serious questions why the border policy has failed to prevent the spread. There's no, apart from the mandatory quarantining in hotels and stuff, there's no way to actually know if people are mandatory quarantining when they're meant to. There's no way. Aside from the jab, what could the government have actually done? Stop travel from countries that have, massive surges in COVID. Put more countries on the red list. Stop people coming in via transit and actually order more mandatory quarantining. Stop tourists and stuff coming in here. Really deter people coming into this country, even if they are British citizens, because you've taken a risk. People have taken a risk by travelling. That should be the case. It's just so stupid. And we got a couple more to go through. The increased confidence against, the jab working against the Indian variant. So the government are confident that the jab is going to work against this new variant. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Let's hope so, because if the jab isn't effective against the new variant, then we're in a ton of trouble. All of us, everyone in this world is in a ton of trouble, because that means the vaccine is going to have to be tweaked to deal with the India variant. Let's hope that's not the case. Let's absolutely hope that's not the case. We go to Robert Peston, who says that India went on the travel list 8 days after my remarks below on the 15th of April. Pakistan and Bangladesh were already on the COVID-19 crisis, where the COVID-19 crisis was not as acute, has been on it since the 9th of April. If lockdown easing is set back, this late decision on India will be another focus of the public inquiry, which absolutely it should be. If hospitalization rates go up because of this new variant, absolutely the government should be held accountable in any kind of public inquiry, because this was a massive own goal. This was a massive own goal the government let in. I know I sound very angry reading this, and I am, because this was entirely avoidable. This was absolutely avoidable, and the government decided not to do it. We've got a bit more. This is another, I think this is the final article, which talks about number 10, defending the India travel ban timing. So number 10 has defended its decision. Obviously it's going to, because it's never going to admit to mistakes. The government source said the UK has some of the toughest border measures. Where? Some of the toughest borders where? In the UK? Where? Are you talking about in Europe, in the world? If there's anyone I haven't done enough research into this. If there's anyone in an EU country right now, or wherever you are in the world, right, comment below if the India variant has hit your country. Because if it hasn't, that tells you we do not have some of the toughest border measures. We have some of the weakest border measures. Our border measures aren't as good as Australia. They aren't as good as New Zealand, and they wouldn't be better than a whole host of countries that aren't dealing with this variant. So again, the government's full of frauds. It comes after the BMA raised concerns about Monday's relaxation of COVID rules. So this is them basically warning Boris Johnson, this variant's a problem. You're going to have to look at your roadmap here. So this is Boris Johnson being warned, and this is what Starmer needs to do now. He needs to go to the House of Commons, PMQs, and say, you, Boris Johnson, chased a trade deal with India and tried to appease Modi instead of putting India on the red list. You are responsible for this new surge in places like Bolton with the Indian variant. That's on you. And I'm telling you now that you're going to have to look at a circuit breaker, and you're going to have to look at delaying the ending of the lockdown restrictions. Otherwise, we're going to have further problems, and this country may go into lockdown again. This is not Captain Hindsight speaking. This is Captain Foresight, and I'm telling you what's going to happen. I'm telling you according to Sage and the independent Sage group. That's what Starmer has to do. Be aggressive. Make the point that I'm telling you what's going to happen, and if you do not do what I'm telling you to do, and this thing happens, that's on you. These hospitalizations are on you. These deaths are on you. That's what Starmer has to do. Be very strong and be very aggressive. Scientists advising the government are confident that the India variant spreads more easily, with the cases of it nearly tripling the 1,113 in the past week in England. Asked why the borders were not closed sooner, a government spokesperson said, "We took precautionary action to ban travel from India on the 23rd of April, 6 days before the variant was put under investigation and 2 weeks before it was labelled as of concern." But the thing is, when a country starts surging in COVID cases, especially where there are lockdowns, that tells you something's going on there, potentially a new and more dangerous variant. And that's what the government's line of thought should have been from the start. But instead, they're saying, oh, we locked out, we shut off travel early, and that was before we even knew, the India variant was dangerous. A ridiculous argument. Prior to India being placed on the red list, anyone in April coming to the UK had to test negative and quarantine for 10 days. But there is some sort of problem. They've talked in the Home Office about, tests being forged, essentially. Negative tests being forged. And maybe that's what's happened here. I don't know. Surge testing is now taking place in target areas, which we mentioned before. That includes postcodes within Bolton, Blackbird, Darwin, and several London boroughs, Sefton, Worcestershire, and Nottingham. So it's not just within Bolton. You've got multiple places within the country, all over the country. You've got Bolton, which is more northeast, and I think Blackburn as well. London, which is obviously in the south. Worcestershire, which is West Midlands, and Nottingham, which I think is also West Midlands. Like, it's done now. It's going to be very difficult to deal with this this variant because it's spread, around the country. And, as, restrictions end, you're going to see COVID cases go up. And that means when these areas are being surged with tests, that's going to take tests away from another area, potentially. It's just so stupid. These guys in charge are idiots. And if you vote Conservative in the next election, then I'm sorry, you're TFG. You're too far gone. Like, I can't be asked to deal with you. It's a real worry that when further measures lift on the 17th of May, the majority of younger people were often highly socially mobile, except your boy here, always stuck at home, and could therefore be more at risk of a more infectious strain, and are not yet vaccinated. The government are saying that over 35s can now be vaccinated, but we don't know if they're going to actually start giving out more second jabs, or if that's just going to be for first jabs. And I've got a long way to go until it's my turn to get a jab. Yet minutes from a meeting of government scientific advisors held on Thursday said an even faster increase can be expected if measures are relaxed. So this is government scientific advisors telling the government, if you start relaxing measures, you're going to have a faster increase. This is the government again being warned. And this is where it gets scarier, because if the variant was 40 to 50% more transmissible than the current dominant type, which I believe is the Kent variant, right? The Kent variant, which is more transmissible than the original version of COVID, then we're in real trouble, because I think the Kent variant was like 3 times more transmissible than the original. The kind of original variant that came out, the original COVID variant that came out of China. The Kent variant was 2 to 3 times more likely to be more infectious, and now you've got one that's like 40% more infectious than the Kent one. Like, this is insane. They warn that proceeding to step 3 of England's roadmap on Monday would likely lead to a substantial resurgence of hospitalisations similar to or larger than previous peaks. So they have warned the government that by releasing the lockdown today, because indoor eating and food or whatever has happened now, that they could see larger peaks than seen before, and that's even with vulnerable people being vaccinated. So this is crazy. Like, even though we've got a lot of people with the vaccine in the UK, and the vaccination rates have dropped fairly dramatically over the last few weeks, if we're going to see that means we're going to have another lockdown. And I remember Boris Johnson saying no more lockdowns. So is he going to bite the bullet and do another lockdown if this happens, if hospitalisation rates start peaking to levels they did before, where the NHS can't cope once again, because this government decided to, instead of doing what they should have done and dealing with the India variant and shutting down travel early from India, they decided to chase a trade deal. Not even a comprehensive free trade deal, minor commercial deals, because they were looking for optics. That's going to be a hard one to figure out. Ministers are keen to push back on claims they acted too late, which we know is the case, pointing out that it was 6 days after the country was put on the red list that the variant was causing alarm. So why is it that Bangladesh and Pakistan were on the red list then? Why was that the case? Is it because it wasn't just down to the new variant that was it wasn't just down to the new variant causing alarm in the UK, but it's also down to the fact that COVID cases were rising anyways within these 3 countries. But one of those 3 was not on the red list. One of those 3 countries the UK was actively seeking to make commercial deals with. I wonder why that specific country was not put on the red list. Was it to appease a certain authoritarian leader? I wonder. So this argument they're making here is very stupid. I think we're done. I don't think there's anything more I want to say on this. Oh wait, there is a bit more actually. There is more, I'm sorry. Which is easing lockdown measures in England on Monday would cause a substantial resurgence in hospital admissions, Sage has warned. That's the official Sage group warning this to the government and to the public. So what that tells you is the government have been warned about this. They cannot deny that they did not know what this was going to happen. The current this is from May the 16th. This is per 100,000 people, so obviously because of Bolton's lower population, the number is going to look far worse. But what you can see is that there are per 100,000 people in Bolton, there are 274 people with COVID, and there are only 23 people in England that have COVID, according to Politics for All. That's how bad the rates are in Bolton, and as far as I know, they are not in a local lockdown. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, correct me, but I don't think I'm wrong. So if hospitality sectors and indoor eating has opened up in Bolton, then that's on the government once again, failing people. And they could make the point that, well, we're not forcing people to go outside and eat, but you're allowing them to do it. That's the point. This is the final one. So, looking back at the data, Matt Hancock says this data is the wrong way of looking at it. This is talking about the COVID cases per million. This look, you can see India had a massive amount higher. They had double the cases per million than Bangladesh, and what's that? Almost 4 times higher than the numbers in India. Yeah, these two were on the red list, but India wasn't. And Matt Hancock saying this is the wrong way of looking at the data. Well, how should I look at it? Should I squint at the screen? Should I put some glasses on? Absolute idiot. This was on April 9th. Matt Hancock says concerns that the UK failed to close the border with India quickly enough are kept in hindsight questions. No, they're not. Because you were warned, bro. You were warned about this. And you didn't listen. That's Captain Foresight, bro. And this classic tweet of arrogant and offensive, can you imagine having to work for these truth twisters? This is just fraudulence on the highest level. But look, I've spoken on a long time now. The only things I want to say is if we go into another lockdown, then I wonder how the public are going to react, especially since we were actually really close to getting out of this one. The COVID numbers in this country actually look good prior to, the India variant hitting. But again, this government constantly puts, the economy and trade deals and Brexit and optics ahead of the lives of people. If they were intelligent, they would have shut down the country. They would have shut down the travel between India and the UK, but they didn't. And this is again on the UK, and this variant could cause another surge in Europe, and that'll be on us again. We allowed the Kent variant to spread. That's caused massive problems in Europe, and honestly, I ask the question of, is the India variant within the country that you live in? Because if the answer is no, most likely you have tougher borders than the UK has, despite the arguments that the British government are making. But anyways, I've rambled on for a long time. Thanks for sticking out with me. If you've made it this far, like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully you won't vote Tory in the next election if you did last time.